Welcome to day 118 of the New Way. Now there's a story within a story here. So I'm going to try to separate them so that we can cover them one at a time. The first incident we'll deal with is the death of John the Baptizer. Then we'll come back to the earlier verses. So we'll begin with Matthew 14, 3 through 12. Now Herod had arrested John and bound him and put him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." Herod wanted to kill John, but was afraid of the people because they considered John a prophet. On Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced for the guest and pleased Herod so much that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist." The king was distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guest, he ordered that her request be granted and had John beheaded in the prison. His head was brought in on a platter and given to the girl, who carried it to her mother. John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus. And Mark's version is Mark 6, 17 through 29. For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested, and he had him bound and put in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had been saying to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." So Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him, but she was not able to, because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Finally, the opportune time came. On his birthday, Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. When the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guest. The king said to the girl, "Ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you." And he promised her with an oath, "Whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom." She went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask for?" "The head of John the Baptist," she answered. At once the girl hurried in to the king with the request, "I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter." The king was greatly distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guest, he did not want to refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner with orders to bring John's head. The man went, beheaded John in the prison, and brought back his head on a platter. He presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. On hearing of this, John's disciples came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. So John the Baptizer was arrested for preaching against Herod's marriage to his brother's wife, Herodias, since her husband was still alive. Apparently, according to Mark, Herod respected the fact that John the Baptist was a holy man, and he was afraid to kill him. But according to Matthew, Herod didn't kill John because he was scared of the people, because they respected John the Baptist as a holy man. But his new wife Herodias had other plans. When her daughter danced for Herod and was offered any gift she wanted, what did she ask for? So John the Baptizer was killed and his body buried by his disciples, and then they came and reported it to Jesus. This is a good example of being totally obedient to God, but still being persecuted. Don't equate earthly problems with not being right with God. It's not always true. Now, a few weeks or a few months later, Jesus sent his disciples throughout Judea to minister and heal and preach the gospel. And Herod hears about it. And these are the verses we skipped at the beginning, but I'll read them now. This is Matthew 14, 1 and 2. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the reports about Jesus, and he said to his attendants, "This is John the Baptist. He has risen from the dead. That is why miraculous powers are at work in him." And I'll read Mark 6, 14 through 16. King Herod heard about this, for Jesus' name had become well known. Some were saying John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him. Others said he is Elijah, and still others claimed he is a prophet, like one of the prophets of long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, "John, whom I beheaded, has been raised from the dead." And Luke 9, 7 through 9. Now Herod the Tetrarch heard about all that was going on, and he was perplexed, because some were saying that John had been raised from the dead, others that Elijah had appeared, and still others that one of the prophets of long ago had come back to life. But Herod said, "I beheaded John. Who then is this I hear such things about?" And he tried to see him. Herod apparently felt guilty about killing John, and because of it, he was certain that Jesus was really John the Baptizer who had come back from the dead. What do you think Luke meant by the final phrase, "He tried to see him"? Wouldn't you think the governor of the area could just order Jesus to come to him? Did Jesus refuse? Did Herod go to hear him preach and couldn't get through because of the crowds? I don't think so. But I don't know what it means. I do know that if he really truly wanted to see Jesus, he could have. So I don't know what it means, but I do know that God worked it out so that Herod got to meet Jesus. We'll see that later after Jesus is arrested. Several years ago, I told my growth group in California that I felt that God wanted me to write a Bible study, but that I was having trouble finding time. I asked for them to pray for me to find time. After a couple of weeks of asking for the same prayer request and reporting that I still hadn't found time to get started, one of the ladies in my group very boldly said, "Have you scheduled a time? Made an appointment with yourself to do this study?" Because a lot of the times we say we want to make time, but we don't ever do it. Wow. That really, really helped me to see that if I felt that God was calling me to do something, I still needed to do my part, to schedule a time to do it. And I did. It's hard to find time for quiet talks with Jesus. You must make time. It's not enough to just want it. You must take action. Set a time. Write it down on your calendar or scheduler. Make it a priority to spend time with Jesus, and He will honor you for the effort, and He will transform your life. In His service, Dale.